Hi, everyone. Welcome to the All Things Amyloid podcast, where we feature patients, caregivers, and clinicians who discuss amyloidosis, a rare and incurable disease. Amyloidosis occurs when the body builds up abnormal amounts of misfolded amyloid protein, which can lead to serious and life threatening outcomes. I'm your host, Mackenzie, an amyloidosis patient and founder of Mackenzie's Mission. Our goal for this podcast is to raise awareness and share firsthand what it's like to live with this disease, to care for those affected by it, and to treat it. We hope this leads to earlier diagnosis and start of treatment, which will improve patient lives. For AL amyloidosis patients, the kidney is one of the most commonly impacted organs. Rigid amyloid fibrils can infiltrate the organ and impair function. And when diagnosed late, the kidney can be in late stage kidney failure. At this point, there are two options for patients: dialysis or kidney transplant. In today's episode, we'll be talking with Mark McIntosh about his kidney transplant journey and how he has become a strong advocate for kidney donation. Welcome, Mark.
Well, it's such a pleasure to see you and hear you, Mackenzie. I know that there's no video here, but I can see you. And I feel like I know you, and I just admire you from afar. So thank you very much.
Of course, it's an absolute pleasure. And, I certainly admire you right back. I think, there's just a strong bond that this disease creates. So I'm so grateful that you're here with us today and you're going to share, a really wonderful story and an important message for our listeners.
Yeah.
So, for those of us with AL amyloidosis, this may be, kidney transplant, the topic in general, may be something that's kind of in the back of our minds as a potential path of something that may arise in the future. But we don't hear much talk about it. So, I want to thank you for helping our listeners understand what life with a kidney transplant is like and how that's evolved. And again, you've become such a strong advocate for kidney donation. So perhaps we could start with your symptoms and what your path to diagnosis looked like.
Sure. I'm 66. And I went to college on an athletics. I'm just an old jock, so I've always stayed in pretty good shape. But back in like the fall of 22, so about 2 years ago this time, I just I usually have a lot of energy, and so I just kind of noticed I was getting tired more. I was waking up all the time while I was sleeping to use the restroom, and there was a lot of foam in my urine, and I was losing weight, and I wasn't trying to lose weight.
Mhm.
So I went to my doctor, and I'm a big believer in maintaining good health and all that kind of stuff. So I've always had monthly or excuse me yearly checkups and all that kind of jazz. But I went and said, Doc, I'm just not feeling that good, and he kind of thought it was maybe my prostate. So he made me an appointment with a urologist at UC Health out here in Colorado,
Mhm.
and I went to this. I didn't actually see the urologist. I saw a physician's assistant, and I kind of just told her what my symptoms were and what my primary care physician thought, and they just wrote me a prescription for some prostate medication. Well, about 3.5 months later, I was taking it, but I wasn't really feeling that great,
Mhm.
and didn't really see any change. And I was at my local gas station,
Mhm.
and I know the guys there. So when I pop in there to fill up my tank, I always go in and I whip grief on them, and they whip grief on me. But when I walked in, Steve, the manager, who's become a real good buddy, he goes, "Man, you look like crap. Your face is falling off your head." And I went, "Well, thanks a lot." And you could tell he was serious.
Yeah.
And so I went back to my primary and I said, "I don't think this stuff's working worth a darn." And he said, "Well, did they do a digital on you?" And I said, "No." "Did they do an ultrasound?" "No." So, I have to prop up on his little table there, and he puts his gloves on and opens up his drawer, and he holds up his K White gel, and he goes, "This is the most stolen thing in my office." And,
Mhm.
he does the deal, and he goes, "There's nothing wrong with your prostate. I'm
Mhm.
ordering blood tests." And so we ordered some blood tests, and it revealed that my kidneys were failing.
Wow.
why are my kidneys failing? I'm a 64-year-old dude who's always been in good shape, and I've had yearly physicals, and I've never had any sign of kidney problems at all. What the
Mhm.
heck is going on around here?
Yeah.
I did a kidney biopsy, which revealed, I'll never forget this. I was just walking off the golf course with my buddies, and I get a text while we're sitting at the 19th hole, and it was the doc that did the biopsy saying you have amyloidosis. Don't Google it. Call me. Because when you Google it, it's kind of scary.
That's a bad choice.
Yeah, yeah. And so, that was the start of this journey, and I've been on this ever since. And I just uh, obviously the treatments for the amyloidosis worked very well for me
Mhm.
because initially, when they realized that, and you had mentioned this in your intro, that a lot of times, by the time, and you all know this very well, by the time you got amyloidosis, it's too late to save whatever organ it's going after, and it was
Yeah.
going after my kidneys, and so that kind of started the journey.
You received the diagnosis, AL amyloidosis. Your kidneys were failing. I mean, obviously, quite a shock. You certainly didn't see it coming, right? So, how did you emotionally support yourself and deal with news like this?
Well, my faith. I've kind of had a life history of things not going the way I planned. I was a pretty promising athlete, going to University of Missouri to play football and baseball, and then I had a head injury that ended my athletic career. I've been through a couple of divorces, have a child from each marriage, fought hard to keep them together. I'm married for the third time. Third time's a charm, or I'm a
Boy.
good strike hitter, as I like to say. And then I was a sportscaster, for 25 years, and then the industry has changed a lot, and so, um, my job was eliminated, and now this. So, in the course of what is now 66 years,
Mhm.
I've grown in faith, and so I leaned into my faith, and just said, "Okay, I don't know what's going on around here, but there's got to be a plan."
Mhm.
And, that's kind of how I approached it and just dove right in. And once they realized, that amyloidosis was going after my kidneys and I was at 14 on the creatinine level, I was basically in kidney failure. They threw me immediately into the hospital and they started uh, dialysis and chemo to fight the
Mhm.
void. And I had my first chemo treatment on my 65th birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
There's a picture of me with the two nurses, and we're all masked up, and there's a little happy birthday mark beside. I, but here I am,
Yeah.
and so you can look at it maybe as the greatest gift I ever got or received. Might be better.
That's certainly a positive way to look at it, and I don't know if a lot of people would look at it that way, but I appreciate your outlook.
Well, but I must admit, when you hear, it's there's no cure for this, you
Yeah.
kind of okay, all right, what's going on? But
Yeah.
daratumumab is our friend.
It certainly is. I would agree with that one. So
Yeah.
you immediately began treatment, right? You got your first chemotherapy session, and then walk us through what treatment continued to look like for you.
Yeah. So I would initially, weekly, I would get the daratumumab,
Mhm.
that tri cocktail.
Mhm.
And also, was immediately thrown into dialysis. So I was on dialysis Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. We were the first shift. The technicians would, open up the doors at 5 o'clock, and they'd look at us and go, "The vampires are ready," and then we'd go in, and so I was on hemodialysis
Mhm.
3 days a week, but and uh, the doctors and everybody attributes this to overall I'm in pretty good shape, and so I handled the treatments pretty well.
Yeah.
I was some days I was pretty fatigued afterward, and I'd take a nap, but I was fortunate. I kind of was able to continue to do the work I do. I run three different ministries, and I'm pretty busy with stuff. But the one thing that really jumped out to me while I was in dialysis, Mackenzie,
Mhm.
and it's been a big part of Drive for Five, and I know we're going to talk about that later, but
Yep.
all my friends, so every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning, about 4:50, we would all gather because we had to be there on time to get our, and all my friends, Amber, Jackie, John, Elizabeth, and Joy, everyone was of color.
Mhm.
I was the only white dude in the place.
Wow.
That's what it really, then I realized, my gosh, not only amyloidosis, but kidney failure. It's really, really affecting uh, people of color. And my background's athletics as an athlete and a sportscaster. And, so I've competed with and teammates with and covered a lot of people of color in
Yeah.
my life. And we've become good friends. And it just breaks my heart. And it's one of the things we're really trying to do, Drive for Five wise, is to reach out to the communities of color and encourage them to try to avoid this. But you can't really avoid amyloidosis. It just comes after you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely want to talk about Drive to Survive, but first I want to circle back to the transplant
So,
and how did you kind of get on to the transplant path? Maybe realize that that was something that was going to be necessary for you. And then once you decided on a transplant, what what did that entail? What did life
sure.
look like?
So the initial goal, I was diagnosed once. Okay, he's got amyloidosis. He's getting
Mhm.
the tests and everything. I was initially diagnosed with acute kidney injury. They
Mhm.
thought we could maybe salvage my kidneys.
Yeah.
So for 9 months, I did hemodialysis
Mhm.
days a week. But and they were telling me after 6 months ain't going to happen. But I said, well, let's just let's keep trying.
Yeah.
But eventually, after 9 months, we realized ain't working.
Mhm.
So then I switched over to peritoneal dialysis,
Mhm.
kind of as the bridge to um, getting a transplant. But
Sure.
so about 9 months in, I basically came to the realization and truth that I needed a kidney transplant. So then I just dove into trying to, just drinking from a fire hose in terms of just trying to learn everything I could about what I have to do, what
Mm.
what I control to try to put me in the best position to get a transplant as soon as possible.
Yeah. So I think our listeners would be curious to know a little bit more about what that looks like,
Yeah.
things, tests, kind of what
Looking.
all what
Okay.
did your life look like when you were kind of trying to learn more about that transplant?
Yeah. Well, you again, almost like when you learn about amyloidosis and, they don't Google it,
Yeah.
it's almost the same
Mhm.
with the kidney transplant world
Mhm.
these days because you know, the kidney crisis is continuing unabated in America. It's
Yeah.
getting worse. And high blood pressure, diabetes, and excessive weight are kidney killers.
Yeah.
And but and then you realize that there's like 90,000 people like me that needed a transplant, and we only have like 27,000 a year, and it's getting worse.
Yeah.
And then realizing that a live organ is better than a deceased, but any organ is better than none.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people, unfortunately, on transplant lists, and they're dying on transplant lists.
Yeah.
And uh, so I learned, I started reaching out and trying to seek knowledge and understanding from people that had gone before me
Mhm.
and realized that the best thing I can do for me, and this was pretty easy for me given my communications background and everything and my personality, is you got to be your biggest advocate.
Yeah.
You've got to take advantage of whether you need to put bumper stickers out there, billboards. I happen to have about 30,000 people that follow me on social media. So I just started blasting out to the world that, hey, this old sports guy needs a kidney.
So clearly there's concern that time may run out before you reach the top of the list.
Oh, without question. I was at an event just the other night and talking to this guy. He's a big sports fan, so he kind of said,
Mhm.
"Hey, are you?" And I said, "Yeah, that's me." And so we started talking sports, and and what really struck me was, the misconceptions out there that you can only be on one list. Well,
Mm,
there is that master list. That's for deceased donors.
mhm,
But there's all kinds of lists out there for live organ donation. And he didn't even know that. And just saying, man, and he loves sports, but he's not as, outgoing as I am. But you
mhm.
could tell, some people just struggle to realize you got to be your biggest advocate. I kind of feel it's my job to educate people that you can be on multiple transplant lists. I was on UC Health, Advent Health Porter, and was getting ready. I grew up in Kansas City,
Mhm,
and uh, KU Med's a big transplant center back there. I was going to go back there and get on their list,
mhm.
but I got the call. Hey, we got a kidney for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know
I
if that answered your question or not, but
yeah, no, and, clearly that sparked motivation, and I definitely wanna talk more about kinda Drive for 5 and what are your goals with that initiative, and then just to learn more about the state of organ donations today. You touched a little bit on it about kind of the multiple lists, and that's something that I hadn't known, so I'm very grateful that you're doing this kind of work. So tell us a little bit more about Drive for 5 and
uh,
and
yeah.
what you're doing with that.
But first, before we kind of move to all that, I just want to thank you and your mom for Mackenzie's mission. I mean, because when I was first diagnosed and we thought I could salvage my kidneys, I wasn't really that worried about my kidneys. I was worried about getting a treatment to knock down the amyloid.
Yeah,
And I've learned so much from you all. So I just want to thank you for that.
of
Um,
course.
so once I realized, okay, I need a transplant, and this kind of gets back to my faith. So I've got this uh, Friday morning fellowship group of dudes that I've been meeting with for 20 years. And
Mhm,
we're, most of us a bunch of old jocks, but we just challenge each other to grow spiritually, And so I had been going in there, and when we first start, you kind of, there's usually 6 to 8 guys, what's going on? And guys say, I'm a dog guy, left me, or, everybody just kind of express what's going on in their life. I
mhm,
said, well, guys, because I had always asked these guys, pray that my kidneys wake up. But
mhm.
now it's the first time I'm back with them since I've waved the white flag of surrender. So I
Yeah.
go, "Well, guys, that didn't work, but now I need a kidney. I need a kidney transplant." And one of the guys sitting next to me looks at me and says, "Macintosh, given your communication skills and your social media following, go find 5,000." Oh, okay. But I didn't even realize there's only like 6,500 live organ donations a year because I had not, I was totally focused on beating amyloid or, getting it under control, getting it
Mhm,
under lock and key. And then my kidneys would wake up, So I hadn't even really known anything about that. But then, so I go, okay, Drive for 5 was born. So we're trying to find 5,000 live organ donors and keep 5,000 people from falling into kidney disease because it's no fun.
mhm.
Uh, but at the time, I didn't realize that there's only 6,500 live organ donations a year in the whole country. And what's really baffling is that we've been stuck at that number, like 6,500
Mhm.
for 25 years. We've got like 70 million more Americans than we had at the turn of the century.
Yeah.
But we did not move the needle at all. But we're trying. I mean, the Drive for 5 is a big part of advocacy at the state and federal level to get that changed because that's just silly.
Yeah. That math definitely does not work.
Yeah. We've done nothing to move the needle in 25 years.
Yeah, that's shocking, and I think that's why it's so important for really our listeners and to realize, 1, self-advocacy is essential to your success as a patient, and 2, when you kind of find a gap or you find a crack or you kind of recognize that we have one of these problems, try to take it on. If no one else is trying to tackle this problem, do it, right? We're all
Yeah.
ordinary people who take up a cause. And we can be extraordinarily effective, and you'd be surprised kind of how powerful one person can be when they find a cause that they believe in. So just a little plug for our audience here that
Yeah. Well, and I
everyone
think,
can make a difference.
yeah, and I'll come charging out of the foxhole any day with you on that.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
But
So
I think that what, it's really kind of resonated with me, as your mom and I started to get to know each other, and, I realized, whoa, the amyloidosis similar. I mean, like, we say don't Google it because people initially go, whoa, but there's a whole lot of good stuff going on, and you guys are leading the charge of, that gives hope to people dealing with amyloidosis. And then, you know, and then kind of the education I'm getting on the kidney disease and transplant side of things, but it's given me purpose through this pain.
yeah.
And that's to your point, that anybody listening to this, never underestimate the power of your voice.
Mm,
Even if you think, well, I don't know much people, I'm not active on social media, but um, you can find purpose in that pain by advocating.
yeah. That's such wonderful words, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate the work you're doing with Five Drive for Five to raise awareness
Yeah.
because this is, this kind of work has such high yield. There are so many people who are waiting for organ donation. And you're right, it's a massive challenge and problem in our country.
Right.
So there are a lot of really grateful people out there for the work that you're doing. So,
Right.
a huge thank you needs to go to you for the work that you're doing. No
Well,
doubt.
thank you. It gets me up out of bed and gives me purpose. But
Yeah.
and anybody listening to this, um, right now in Washington, D.C., last week we had Lobby Day where
Mhm.
there's a 40-year law that was passed in 1984. Al Gore, a handsome young dude from Tennessee, was a representative, and they passed the National Organ Transplant Act. And
Mhm.
that kind of regulated two things. We had a shortage back then, so they were hoping this would increase donations. And then also, um, the second was they wanted to improve the matchmaking process because at
Mhm.
the time, they just stole a kidney and your body would reject it, and it wasn't very successful.
Mhm.
In the 40 years since, obviously the shortage has gotten worse,
Yep.
but the matchmaking has gotten very good. Just like I was very confident the kidney they put inside my body, that my body and that kidney with
Mhm.
medical team and the techniques they have now, they'd probably figure out a way to get along just fine.
Yeah.
Uh, but the donation side, so we're trying to modify that 40-year-old bill
Mhm.
law with what's called the End Kidney Deaths Act, which would give people a $50,000 tax credit spread out over 5 years to share their spare. And our opponents to this go, oh, you're selling organs. No, we're giving a tax credit to somebody that would share their spare and save a life because we got 90 and we're only getting 27, 90,000 versus 27. And as we get more and more out of shape in America, it's getting worse. More and more people are going to need dialysis and they're going to need kidney transplants. And we give tax credits for electric vehicles and solar panels. We pay people for sperm, fertilized eggs, and plasma. Why in the world, given the state we're in, would
Mhm.
we not give a tax credit? And
Yeah.
so, uh, anybody that's interested in that, they could just get in touch with me, and I can tell them. But
Very interesting. Be
yeah, I
interesting to
mean,
see how that pans out.
well, we had 33 people descend on the Capitol,
Yeah.
and the staff members and lawmakers. And so, yeah, and actually, I write a weekly column for Drive for Five, and the
Uh-huh.
column this week is the trains kind of left the track, and we're, we're trying. I mean,
Yeah.
it gets back to what you all are doing, to kind of educate
Yeah.
well, and the medical community. I just when I first met your mom and she talked about we go talk to universities and the next generation of doctors, I thought that is brilliant. That is brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. To be fair, it was, to all credit due, that was not our original idea. It was, an idea that was brought to us by a fellow patient with amyloidosis, and, when I heard the idea, the notion of the kind of the speakers bureau and educating medical professionals, like, a light bulb went off. I'm like, "Holy crap.
You
We
know,
this is a brilliant idea, and we need to make it a reality." And,
you
thankfully
know,
we have, but it's,
yeah.
it's fun to see how an idea can become something so powerful.
Well, your mom took full credit the first time I met her,
I I'll have to talk with her on that later. We'll get that ironed out. But I
but,
wanna get back to
if
you.
I could
You're our guest.
before we go to that, anytime I can help you all, I'd love to
Absolutely.
go out and
Absolutely. But I wanna get back to your story because I think, this is a question that a lot of patients are interested in personally, and that is when you got the call that you had a kidney for you, what was that like? What was going through your head? And talk us through
yeah,
what what the process was like after you got that call and receiving the transplant, and walk us through that because I think a lot of people are
yeah,
curious about kind of what that process looks like.
yeah. So I was on 2 lists. Again, for anybody out there that's at this point, you can get on as many transplant lists, via the transplant centers. There's like 250 transplant centers around the US. So anyway, I was playing golf and, I had gotten out of my cart and went up to the green, and it was a charity deal, and so, we putted out and everything, but then we got into a big conversation with the people that were sponsoring that hole, they
Mhm,
were play something, and so it was about 20 minutes before I walked back to my cart, and I noticed that I had a call from, Jessica Coleman, who's the transplant coordinator at Advent Health Porter here, and she was like, "Mark, call me." "What are you doing? Answer your phone." And and so then I got busy and I forgot, somehow I got distracted. So I didn't call her back for like an hour.
mhm.
And my wife, I think it was because Jessica called my wife and said, "Mark's not answering the phone." And so, I got on my phone that I had missed a call from my wife, and I know to answer my wife's phone calls. So she goes, "Call Jessica. She's got a kidney for you." And so I called Jessica and I go, "Hey, you got a kidney?" She goes, "Yeah, but you got to take it next Wednesday." This was like a Friday.
Yeah.
And I said, and I was going to miss my niece's wedding in Peoria, Illinois. I was looking
Oh,
forward to
wow.
going back and see her get married and all that kind of stuff. I go, There's no wiggle on the date. Nope, got to take it next Wednesday." Because my donor, a woman who I'm gonna meet soon, uh, my angel in my midst, as I call it, she had uh, just planned on going to take the kidney on Wednesday, June 12th, because they had another potential donor or recipient lined up, but
Mhm,
that recipient fell off the list.
mhm,
Because that's one of the things people need to realize is, for anybody out there that's maybe facing this deal, is you get on that list, but you got to do everything you can to stay healthy, to stay on that list.
mhm,
Because if you fall off the list, you can't get the transplant. Well, so this woman says, "Okay," and we got it. So we got a donor and we got a recipient, and it's all set for June 12th. But then the recipient fell off the list.
mhm.
The donor said, "Oh, I'll give it, but I'm going to give it on June 12th. I've planned everything around this."
Yeah.
Well, I happened, they punch in all the numbers, and I popped up, and so I'm getting this call on a Friday saying, "Mark, we got a kidney for you, but you got to take it next
Mhm.
Wednesday." So, sure. And then, so for me, it was a pretty quick process. But I met a lot of people through Drive for Five stuff that, they languish and, and you just hope and pray that, somebody will come along that just understands they can live just fine with one kidney and understands that there's a lot of us out there suffering and in need of help. And they go, "Sure, I'll share my spare. I'll save your life."
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So off I went on Wednesday, June 12th. And it was about a 4-hour surgery. And there was a great story done by a local station here about the actual transplant day. And they did a wonderful job of kind of showcasing my wife and all her girlfriends. And kind of a sidebar was that so when I went to Porter Hospital on the morning of the transplant, so you go through the emergency room because the donor at the time wanted to remain anonymous is
Mm.
going to the front entrance. Okay, so we both went in, and so I never met um, my donor, but they put her family members and my wife and her posse of girlfriends in the same waiting room. Well, so my wife and all of her girlfriends are over there just chatting away, and finally, uh, somebody who was there for my donor uh, comes over and goes, "Is your husband getting a kidney today?" Yeah. Well, my sister is giving a kidney today. So they kind of put two and two together. And then Porter came out and said, "You guys can't see each other. You guys can't." I said, "Well, don't put them in the same waiting room."
Yeah.
But but it's it's I was kind of surprised by my emotions. Part of me is like, "Yeah, let's go," and then you're kind of like, "Whoa, this is showtime," you know.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking a lot about my donor. Just like this, so grateful that, and she was sparing or sharing her spare because her husband needed a kidney. She got tested. She wasn't a good match for him, but she knew that if she donated to a complete stranger, it moves her husband to the top of the list for a better match. It's called the voucher system. So sure, take it. And I was the lucky recipient. And I was in the hospital for 3 days.
Hmm.
It wasn't bad. I mean, some stay a week. It just kind of depends.
Yeah.
Um, but you immediately, you know, it's kind of fun operating with a good kidney because when you don't have good kidneys, life sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you giving us a glimpse into what that process is like.
Yeah.
And then how's recovery going today?
It's going very well. There's certain numbers. Your creatinine, like
Mhm.
it was 14 when this journey started, and now they want me to keep it under 2.
Mhm.
And then there's a couple other numbers they look at, but so all my numbers look really good.
Mhm.
Uh, and I'm putting weight back on. I put about 10 pounds back on, and people always say you got so much color. I guess I look half dead, but. Um, there is, but and the people at Advent Health Porter have done a good job. They educated me all along, and I really believe in my medical team. And that's another thing for anybody out there listening. If you don't feel comfortable with your team, again, be your biggest advocate. Go find people that you believe in, and you guys do a great job of doing all that. But um, I lost my train of thought. We were talking about, I do have um, the BK virus, which is very common in transplants of kidneys. The
Mhm.
BK virus affects your kidney.
Mhm.
And it's usually people with strong immune systems, or even decent immune systems, it knocks it out.
Mhm.
But people that your immune system is very compromised, the BK virus can nick you, and that's very
Yeah.
common with transplant. So I've got the BK virus. So now they're moving my meds again. They're taking me off of a lot of the anti-rejection to try to boost my
Yeah.
immune system so
Mm.
it can knock out this BK virus, because if it gets out of control, it can damage my new kidney.
Yeah.
And we got to do a little transfusion for 3 to 6 months. It's almost like chemo,
Yeah.
but we think we can do it at the same time. But you know, I I know that stuff's saving my life.
Yeah.
And it gets to be a pain in the butt, but sure beats the alternative.
Yeah. Certainly a worthy cause.
Yeah, yeah.
And how's the state of your amyloidosis?
It's really good. My light changed, all that, but the one thing now that I got this BK virus,
Mhm.
um, we never have to forget about Amy.
Mm-hmm.
I like to call it. And I don't know if I can say this on podcasts, but I always joke that Amy's an asshole. So it's been a real kind of wake up call. Hey, McIntosh, don't ever forget
Yeah.
Amy's lurking,
Yeah.
and you've got to keep her under control, under
Yeah.
lock and key, maximum security prison. We got guards all around this thing, you know,
Yeah.
uh, because if she rears her ugly head, if the past is any indication, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Mark, thank you so much for speaking with us today. I'm so grateful to hear that everything is going well in terms of the state of your health and your kidney. But lastly, before we end, I'd love for you to share with our audience how they can learn more about Drive for Five, as well as kind of any closing words that you have for them, particularly those who may be facing kidney failure or the prospect of a kidney transplant.
Well, first, and your mom and I have talked a lot about this, early detection.
Yeah.
Um, and you guys are doing a great job there. But for anybody out there, especially, um, you know, us dudes, I'm losing a little weight, but if you got a lot of foam in your urine, you're not sleeping well, and all the indicators I had that something was a muck. Um, have your doctor say, hey, just check it, make sure I don't have amyloidosis. If they're getting a little confused and we don't know what this is, well, check me for amyloidosis, especially middle-aged guys. But Drive for Five, the best way is just to go to our website. It's dffnetwork.org. So Drive for Five network.org. And just hit the contact button and send me an email. And then there's all kinds of stuff on there that you can see that would talk about my journey and what we're trying to do. And we're just trying to encourage more Americans to realize they can share their spare. A lot of people go, I didn't know you can live with one kidney. I go, yeah, I got three because they don't take out your bad kidneys, you know. And so it's just kind of, inspire America. Hey, share your spare. You can save somebody's life.
Yeah.
Two, to advocate for better policies like the End Kidney Deaths Act. And three, educate people about kidney disease and so watch your weight, watch your blood pressure, and watch, your blood sugar levels. Stay away from diabetes. Those three things will kill your kidneys and put you on a journey that is, it's going to be a little rough, but it's, you can get through it. But if you don't have to go through it, why would you go through it?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you join us today.
It's so great to finally meet you.
Absolutely.
You're even better than your mom talked about.
I don't know about that. That's very kind of you.
No pressure.
No pressure. And to our audience with amyloidosis, particularly AL, and those who may be facing kidney failure, just to keep in mind that transplantation is a possible path. And if you'd like to learn more, please check out Drive for Five's website to learn more. Thank you for listening to the All Things Amyloid podcast. If you find our podcast informative, please follow and share it with others. If you want to learn more about the work we're doing at Mackenzie's Mission, please visit mm713.org. We'd also like to thank AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals, Alexion Pharmaceuticals, Alnylam Pharmaceuticals, and Bridge Biopharma for their sponsorship to help raise awareness about amyloidosis. We hope you stay tuned for future episode drops. Thanks for listening.